We had one burn where 1 second overburn would put you into the moon.
When I think about your flight and I think how we all try to share it with the people that we love, something that really stands out to me as very special and thoughtful in the experience you had on the moon was this picture of your family that you left there.
Well, it was, I think it was very important for our family to get them involved and to get our family involved. I said, well, let's take a picture of our family and I'll leave it on the moon. Well, on the back of the picture, we had written, this is the family of astronaut Charlie Duke from planet Earth, who landed on the moon. We all signed it, and then fortunately, when I dropped it, it fell face up, and I was able to take a picture of the picture. And it started curling up right away because the temperature on the surface was probably 100 degrees centigrade at that point. So. Didn't last very long, but long enough for me to take a picture of it. It was really exciting for them. Yeah.
That's what counts.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's what counts, yeah. Apollo 16 at the end, the backpack weighed as much as I did. So you bent over. So when I jumped, I straightened up. Well, CG went backwards and over I went. That backpack breaks, I'm dead. So, do something. So, fear is not a bad emotion if you don't panic.
Yeah, and I love your comment about fear is an okay thing to experience as long as you don't freak out. And I think that's what our training did for us.
But the ascent simulations in the shuttle air were technically, formally, ascent skills. Mm-hmm. But all the anomalies they would throw, and we always called it ascent kills because a lot of time they'd push you to the limit and it wouldn't work.
Yeah.
Charlie, I remember watching you fall over on your back as a young girl at home watching on TV, and I'm glad you weren't scared because I gasped as much as anybody in mission control. The other dimension that occurs to me is you knew that about your crewmates.
Right.
And so your crewmates are also space qualified.
Yeah, it was the expectation of everything.
You count on that trust.
Yep.
There's no question this is going to work. No question I know what you're going to do and how you're going to respond. And it takes that for a successful mission, especially if things start to go a bit wrong.
It's almost like a rite of passage, At least in our time frame, there was kind of this expectation that Omega would be part of the experience, right? And so when you finally got that training watch and then the opportunity to have your own watch, and it really just seemed like it was part of what that whole experience should be.
Yeah,
Back in Apollo, you didn't get a watch until you got named for a crew.
Yep.
So that was, man, I'm back up for 13. I'm gonna get an Omega watch and be able to wear that around, and that was really special.
And when I made it into the astronaut corps, and then did the deep dive with Victor Vescovo to find myself suddenly part of the Omega family. Now wearing a Speedmaster and also having a Seamaster, my sea and space dichotomy continues. It feels like an extra honor to me to have a Speedmaster and really physically be part of that heritage and that lineage, because you guys started it all. The dial, a large clear dial with high contrast because you're in all sorts of strange lighting conditions on a spacewalk. You could peel the wrist cover back and be sure that you could see it and read it accurately. And even with a hefty glove around your hands, that all the controls are proper, they're well-sized and well-spaced. So if you go after the stopwatch button or the reset button, you're just gonna get that one and the watch will be doing what you need it to do.
Well, to me, it was the stopwatch feature. That's what I remember most. It was really important to time the burns and to be that the watch was the backup to the computer. And as I said earlier, we had one burn where 1 second overburn would put you into the moon. And so it was very important. As the engine ignited, I started a watch and counted down.
One of my like personal highlight memories is the use of it, like discovering the use of it to just pull me away from something that I was really drawn into. And that normally would be the view of Earth out the window. One of those 90-minute orbits could go by seeming like that. And I realized how valuable this was. And it'll seem simple, but about how valuable it was to like pull me back into, you know, the job that I had there too at the window. And this watch has the best alarm that you will ever find.
Try to teach all my kids that the mountains that we climb will take you to a point where you can see the next mountain out there, and that'll be your objective. You know, I'm at almost 90 years old, I'm still physically qualified, but as I said last night, NASA said, don't call us, we'll call you. And so I'm not gonna get to go anymore, but there's a lot of people I try to encourage, this younger generation, that I taught my kids when they were small. It was a Dr. Seuss book says Beyond Z.
Yep.
And I try to get people to think beyond Z. What are you going to do, and or how are you going to handle this? And